When you hear the word Germany, what comes to your mind? A powerful European nation, perhaps. Advanced engineering, cars, and technology, a rich and complex culture that has shaped the world. These are all true. But have you ever stopped to ask a very simple question? Why is Germany called Germany? And more curiously, why do Germans themselves not use that name? Why do they call their country Deutschland? This isn't just a language quirk. The answer unlocks a hidden history, a fascinating story stretching back thousands of years. It's a tale shaped by ancient tribes, powerful Roman emperors, shifting languages, and changing borders. This isn't just about a name. It's about identity, power, and the very idea of a nation. So join us today as we uncover the epic story behind Germany's names. To understand this story, we have to travel back in time, long before Germany as we know it existed. Central Europe was a mosaic of diverse and independent tribes. There was no single nation, no unified country. These tribes had their own leaders, their own cultures, and their own distinct languages. Think of powerful groups like the Suebi, the fierce Carusi, the expanding Alemanni, the seafaring Saxons, and the mighty Franks. Each of these was a world unto itself. There was no Germany, no Deutschland, only a vast landscape of tribal lands, forests, and rivers. Then everything started to change. The colossal Roman Empire began its relentless expansion northward, pushing its frontiers to the great rivers of Europe. For the Romans, any land east of the Rhine River and north of the Danube was a mysterious, untamed wilderness. It was the edge of their known world, and they needed a name for it. They called this entire region Germania. The word Germania was not German. It was a Latin name, a label created by outsiders. It was first widely popularized by none other than Julius Caesar in his writings about his military campaigns. A century later, the Roman historian Tacitus wrote a famous book, simply titled Germania. In this work, he described in great detail the tribes, their customs, the lands they inhabited, and their way of life. From the Roman perspective, the word Germania carried specific meanings. It referred to the foreign tribes living beyond their civilized, structured world. It conjured images of people who were strong, fierce, and fiercely independent warriors. They were the other, the people on the far side of the river. This Roman label, created for their own administrative and military purposes, would stick. It would echo through the centuries and shape how the world saw this region forever. But where did the Romans even get this word German? The exact origin is still debated by historians, and it's a bit of a mystery. There are a few leading theories. Some believe it may have come from a Celtic word, possibly meaning neighbors or perhaps related people, which the Romans might have picked up from Celtic tribes living nearby. Another theory suggests it came from a Germanic word for warrior or men of the spear. But here is the most crucial point in this entire story. The name was given by outsiders. The people living in the land the Romans called Germania never ever used the word German to describe themselves. This is a fundamental piece of the puzzle. They identified with their tribe, their clan, or the specific dialect they spoke. The idea of a single German identity simply did not exist for them. So if they weren't calling themselves Germans, what were they calling themselves? Over many centuries, as different dialects and languages evolved and mingled, a common term began to emerge among the people themselves. That word was diutisk. It's an old word, and its meaning is beautifully simple and profound. It meant of the people, or spoken by the ordinary people. This was a way to distinguish their own language from the Latin spoken by the Romanized elites and the church. And from this ancient root word, diutisk, we get the modern words we know today. Deutsch, the language, and Deutschland, the country. So when a German says Deutschland, they are literally saying the land of the people. It's a name that grew from the inside out, a name born from a shared linguistic and cultural identity, not a political one imposed by a foreign power. It represents a sense of belonging, based on common speech and heritage. This brings us to another fascinating aspect of this story. Germany is one of the very few countries in the world that has a multitude of different names in other languages. Why is that? The answer lies in history. Different nations and cultures came into contact with different Germanic tribes at different times. Each encounter left a different name in its wake. Let's look at a few examples. In France, they say Allemagne. This name comes directly from the Alemanni, a powerful confederation of tribes that lived along the Upper Rhine, right on the border with what is now France. So for the French, the Alemanni represented all the people beyond. Travel north to Finland. And you'll hear them call the country Saxa. This name comes from another famous tribe, the Saxons. The Saxons were known for their trade and raids across the North and Baltic Seas, and so for the Finns they became the face of this region. Now, let's go east to Poland. They say Niemcy. This name has a unique linguistic origin. It likely comes from an old Slavic word meaning the mutes, or those who do not speak our language. It was a way to describe foreigners whose speech was incomprehensible. Meanwhile, in Italy and Spain, they say Germania, a name that comes directly from the original Latin term used by the Romans. Each name is a historical footprint, a little time capsule that tells us about ancient migrations, trade routes, and first contacts. For much of its history, the land we now call Germany was not a single unified country. It was part of the vast and complex Holy Roman Empire, often described as a patchwork of hundreds of kingdoms, duchies, principalities, and free cities. There was no single Germany. This reality lasted for 1,000 years. It was only in the 19th century, after a series of wars, political movements, and a surge of nationalism, that the idea of a unified German state finally took hold. In 1871, in the Hall of Mirrors at Versailles, the German Empire was proclaimed. The official internal name for this new nation-state was, of course, Deutschland. It was the name that came from the people. But internationally, the old Roman name, Germany, survived and became the standard. So today we have this fascinating dual identity. Germans proudly call their homeland Deutschland, a name that speaks to their shared language and heritage. At the same time, most of the world continues to call it Germany, a name that echoes back to the Roman legions standing on the banks of the Rhine. This dual identity is a powerful reflection of the country's entire history. It encapsulates Roman encounters, ancient tribal legacies, the evolution of language, and the complex tapestry of European politics. It's a constant reminder that the names we use are never just simple labels. They carry memory, they carry perspective, and they carry centuries of history within them. Germany's name is not just a word, it's a Roman label that stuck. It's a story of tribal identity. It's a linguistic journey from Deutsch to Deutsch. And it's the symbol of a national identity forged through centuries of change. From the foreign label of Germania to the homegrown name of Deutschland, this is the story of how history shapes our world, right down to the words we speak every single day. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed discovering the story behind the name, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with anyone who loves to uncover the untold histories of our world. We'll see you in the next one.